that it is sacred, unchanging, and that every story that was worth telling had already been told through mythology and history. Let's face it, for a college student that is balancing assignments, exams, chai breaks, and perhaps a movie a week, a Bharatanatyam performance does not scream a must-do Friday night event. Right? Over time, a question began to fall. If our lives are changing, and if the way we consume information and entertainment is evolving rapidly across books and screens, why isn't classical dance evolving too? Why isn't classical dance using these tools to tell new stories in new ways to a new world? More importantly, if I were to take all the content available on stage today, performed by Bharatanatyam artists, and flood the screens with it, would there be any takers for it beyond those that are already invested and interested in it? Or would I be preaching to the pulpit, speaking to a select inner circle, an echo chamber? I was faced with two very important questions. How do I take Bharatanatyam to a wider audience? And importantly, how do I take Bharatanatyam to that person who's not interested in Bharatanatyam to begin with and perhaps has never been initiated in it? So they will watch it with the same excitement that they would bring to mainstream cinema. This was the foundation of my journey from classical soloist to Bharatanatyam filmmaker. I'll discuss this in three parts. Let me begin with why is it important to move Bharatanatyam from the stage to the screen? Bharatanatyam is admired, but from a distance. It is like that super senior who's very impressive, but perhaps a little intimidating, and you're just a little shy to approach them. It's tied in with rituals, traditions, culture. Some of these things almost seem intimidating. It's coded, speaks a language of its own. And because it's based in mythology, it might seem predictable and tedious for the younger generation who are hungry for new content. And meanwhile, storytelling has undergone a transformation. Stories are told on screens, social media, streaming platforms, silent scrolling. Audiences consume it in cabs, on couches, in coffee houses, and content creators are constantly vying for audience attention. Let's face it, our attention span has dwindled so much that now it's less than it takes Maggie to cook. Purists might tell you, why would you change something that is time-honored? It's not necessary, perhaps even irreverent. But herein lies the difference between living and surviving. If you want Bharatanatyam to live and not just archive, then you need to move it into a medium that has the greatest reach. And that is not Bharatanatyam. And that is cinema. So, rather than just think of preserving tradition, what I needed to focus on was, can an ancient art form connect with modern hearts? And if so, how? This brings me to the second question. How did I adapt Bharatanatyam for the screen? Let me be clear, I did not change the grammar of the art form. I preserved the structure, the technique, the integrity. What I changed was the syntax, how it was used. Now, the transition from Sabhas to screen was not direct. There was a pit stop. And that was my initial work on stage, which I loosely call Bharatanatyam dance theatre. Obviously, stage comes with its limitations. Trudging along, my singer, Natuvanar, violinist, mridangist, 17 props and costumes and what have you across the world is not a scalable solution. When I made my first dance film, Descent, I realized that stage and screen are completely two different worlds. My expressions on stage had to reach and communicate with the person sitting in the last row. On screen, a blink of an eye was sufficient to register on the camera. I was not just filming a performance, I was reconstructing Bharatanatyam for cinema. My narrative was a story and not the traditional marga. Story became the axis around which everything revolved. I was not showcasing my skill as a dancer. It was not about what I could deliver with Bharatanatyam. The focus was on how Bharatanatyam could tell a story. Now, the music had to undergo transformation. It had to be emotionally resonant across cultures, even though it was based in Carnatic raga. My choreography had to be timed for cinematic pacing, more than just the tempo of the music. I had to choreograph not just movements in space, but also choreograph movements in focus. The camera became a partner in storytelling, editing, framing. All of those allowed for audience immersion and emotional timing. This was not Bharatanatyam diluted. This was Bharatanatyam evolved. And to illustrate what I mean by it, let me play you a short clip from one of my films, Soul Cages.
What does he mean I cannot return? Yes, heaven is beautiful. But of what use is his beauty if I cannot be with the ones I love? If I cannot have her here, this cannot be heaven. I have been caged.
Thank you. So, how is what I do different from mainstream cinema? Popular cinema today seems to follow a predictable template, a stylized hero entry, a pre-interval twist that almost makes you spill your popcorn, a dance sequence randomly inserted with no relationship to the plot, and suddenly everybody knows the choreography. A climax, if clever enough, leaves enough room for a sequel. Choreography is a spectacle, dance, a diversion. The story becomes subservient to the parts that are serving it. It almost seems to take a backseat. In my films, dance is not ornamental. It is not an extra. It advances the story, or it underscores or underlines an emotion. Is it inspired by the works of thespians like K. Vishwanath Garu and Sagara Sangamam? Absolutely, and why not? His work is inspirational to the world. Dance marks the line between what is said and what is felt in my films. It makes the intangible palpable. You don't need to know Bharatanatyam to understand the story. Bharatanatyam allows you to understand it and feel it to a point where you're emotionally immersed. The characters are not just passively observed, you start inhabiting their lives. This is how classical dance can be reframed to become universal through cinema. So what is the future? What is the next step? And I believe the next step is through intentioned innovation. It is not abandoning tradition, but allowing it to speak new truths. It is not about taking Bharatanatyam and fusing it with hip-hop to make it contemporary. It is about telling stories that matter, having someone who has never seen Bharatanatyam, who has perhaps never been to a temple, look and watch a film and say, that's my story. It is not just about preserving tradition, it's about expressing the present through a language from the past. Bharatanatyam has moved from temple precinct to royal courts to the stage, and now it stands in the digital doorway. The choice I had was between freezing it in time and letting it breathe. I chose to let it breathe. I chose to tell new stories through old rhythms, to move the soul of Bharatanatyam into modern hearts. And the question I have for all of you today is, what ancient part of your life is waiting to be reborn? Thank you.